When looking at the information obtained from the numeral ID, forward number word sequence and backward number word sequence assessments, taken together we can see that the pupil is weakest with backward number word sequence at early 2-star, followed by forward number word sequence at early 3-star, and strongest in numeral identification at second 2-star. Just for comparison, grouping and place value have similar gaps, but she does have strengths in these areas too when you look at the assessment information. Addition and subtraction is a relative strength in terms of her level, but will likely not move on very easily until the other areas are addressed. We want to aim to bring all these areas in line with one another and strengthen understanding and application. In terms of the 3 assessments we've looked at here, work can be done not just on the sequences, but also understanding relative size of numbers, their position on a number line, using this to support understanding of rounding and as part of calculations. All this will help to strengthen her overall number sense. The first priority would be the missing number 20. Making the pupil aware of this gap would be useful, and some informal counting opportunities in games for a few seconds or minutes each day should help to address this. This could be incorporated into class routines, such as asking the pupil to count down from 25 when the class is tidying up, for example, or games where pupils take it in turns to say 1, 2, or 3 numbers, and whoever gets to 0 first is the winner, or is out, depending on how you want to play. This may seem like a simple game, but children love playing it, and for those that can already easily count in this sequence, their goal might be to try and work out a winning strategy. Is it better to go first or second? Does the strategy change depending on the number you start at, or how many people are playing? The number range could also be adapted too, so instead of counting from, say, 21 down to 0, pupils could be counting from 76 down to 65, or 208 to 197, and therefore working on the boundaries that many pupils find challenging to cross. The activities described will help to address both the missing number 20 and the number word before and after in the range to 20. Activities could also include those that involve a hide-and-see flipboard. This is a useful way to gradually increase how many items are screened, so pupils initially start with all the information available and are asked to identify the numerals as well as the number before and after, and then gradually screen more and more of the numerals, making it more complex until only one number is visible and you're asking, what number is this? Followed by, what is the number after and what is the number before? The language can be adapted as well. So for example, instead of asking about the number after or before, you could ask, what is one more or one less? So pupils start to build connections and develop a better understanding of the language. This activity could be done at any number range and could also be done with sequences of different sizes, for example in 2s or 6s, or decimal representations of tenths, or representations of thirds as fractions. The pupil could also work on activities that help them to think about the relative size or position of numbers. Take a look at the activity Treasure Box on the Highland Numeracy blog for some ideas. This could then be extended to estimating where the numbers should be placed on a number line, moving from a fully structured number line, gradually reducing how much information is there until they are able to do this on an empty number line. Encourage pupils to make use of or visualize benchmarks to help them, for example, trying to visualize where halfway would be and what number that would be, and then position it relative to this number. As with the other activities, the number range can be adapted as the pupil makes progress, although remember to get depth from using a range of activities targeting subtly different things within the same number range first. Adapting the number range also means you can use the same activity for a range of pupils within the class. The pupil could also work on rounding to the nearest multiple of 10, for example. Some pupils have difficulties with rounding, particularly when just using digits alone, or even when using a standard number line. If you ask them to round to the nearest 10, and they have gaps in their grouping and place value understanding, they may not realize that by nearest 10 you mean numbers like 20, 30, 40, and so on. If you look at those numbers, none of them actually show 10 when looking at the digits alone. This is why it's so important to consider the connections between different areas in maths and be aware of gaps in pupils' knowledge and understanding. Your choice of materials or visuals and how abstract these might be to the pupil is also important to consider. Using materials where the tenness within numbers like 20, 30, and 40 is clearer might help pupils make better sense of this when they're first starting out. Developing the concept of rounding will help pupils to consider the relative size and position of the number in relation to other numbers. It will also be useful for developing estimation strategies and calculation strategies. Again, the number range can be varied where appropriate, but even when changing it, for example, doing this with decimals, return to concrete materials such as decimats before progressing onto a more abstract visual like the number line alone, or with just digits. Rather than pushing the pupil on with areas that are already a relative strength, for this pupil, this was their numeral ID, it will likely be beneficial to them to explore these other areas in depth and bring these up in line with one another. When they are all at a similar level and the depth of understanding is there, in terms of next steps, it would be useful for this pupil to work on numeral identification for 6-digit numbers and beyond. They may benefit from exploring the repeating ones, tens, and hundreds pattern in our number system, as this could then be extended to understanding the place value of decimals. This could be done using something like the place value houses from the New Zealand Material Masters site, alongside a place value flip chart. When decimals are introduced, the decimats could be used alongside this. Exploring the relative size of these larger or smaller numbers through similar activities to those already described would also be useful. While a vast array of ideas has been presented here, more to give teachers a broader range of things to think about and try, ensure you don't rush on too quickly or try to tackle too much at once. In terms of how these ideas and activities would work if you had pupils working at different levels across a class, the majority of the activities can be adapted so that while everyone is working on the same broad concept, including with the same or similar core activity, your questioning will provide a scaffold for some pupils, while extending other pupils' thinking, taking the concept to a deeper level. Pupils could be at different phases of the teaching model, for example, some with materials or visuals, others screening, and others abstract. The choice of materials might be adapted too. The activity could be adjusted slightly as well to extend the number range. Hopefully that has given you a range of ideas for things you could try with pupils working at a similar level in your class, but also for those working above or below this.